Alright, bet boys. It was good. Hope all of you guys are good today. Week 3. Favorite number is number 3. And this week, fuck this thing. This week, we're going to be discussing the word deliberate, which is, the definition says, done consciously and intentionally, which I think for most people nowadays is very hard to do, especially with the consciously and intentionally. And I don't think that's even just for these days. I think it's for throughout history. This kind of predicates back to the idea, or preludes to the idea, that we do a lot of the things that we do today just because we're told to do them. And kind of leads back to that existential thought of purpose. And what does it mean to be purposeful or have purpose? And for most people, purpose is just to do what they're told, right? Or just to survive, which is absolutely fine. I don't think there's anything negative in that realm, because, I mean, for thousands of years, that's how humans have existed. I mean, slaves of the Roman Empire, right, of the Greek Empire, our ancestors who didn't really have much room for higher order thinking or philosophical thought, because every single day was, am I going to die or am I going to live? Right? And obviously we face death every day, but it's not looming over the fact that we can't eat or we don't have water, at least in a first world country like America. There are plenty of people who still face that today, but I believe the audience I am talking to will not have those problems, and if you do, I'm sorry, and I'll pray for you, but I doubt it. I can't really send money, I'm kind of broke. But if you really do need food, just come over, I can give you some food. Unless you have food, then don't show up on my door, else I'm gonna fucking kick you off my balcony. But, but, on the contrary too, right? Or not a contrary, but in seriousness, that thought of being deliberate with our words, with our life, is something that is very hard. And it's very hard for me too, because growing up, I like any child, right? Adam Grant's book, it's Why the Way We Think, right? I believe is the name of it. Don't really care. I just remember the key concept of it was, when you ask a 5-year-old, right, what do you want to be when you grow up? The 5-year-old is never going to answer with, I want to be a spiritual person. I want to be a good father. I want to be happy. Here's what they're going to answer with: an occupation. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a sports player. I want to be a businessman. Right? In very few cases, at least what I've experienced in my life, never have I ever seen a child say, I want to be something leading to a moral characteristic or even spiritual characteristic. It has always been something that is occupation-wise, just job-wise. And from a young age, you're kind of groomed to think in that way, right? You're sent to school. What is the purpose of school? Well, to educate you. What's the purpose of education? Well, the purpose of education is so then you can go continue to get more education, so then you can go into training for then the occupation you will work with that will bring benefit to society. When you're taught at a very young age is that your benefit to society will not be through your ideas, it will not be through the family that you bring up, it will not be the people that you meet. Your benefit to society will be your occupation. And that's where I think we, as people, and I think especially as men, I want to talk to the men, right? I think mostly men watch this, is why we're not deliberate in the way that we live. I say this from the bottom of my heart, including myself, is because we're doing things that are not conscious. We're not consciously aware of why we're doing them, and we're not doing them intentionally. They have no greater meaning to us. They have no intention to them. They're a means to an end. That is the intention. But an intention that is conscious to us, that is conscious to us, is one that brings such a deep meaning that it will never end, I guess, is in my opinion, right? Oliver Sacks, I believe is the name, he doesn't believe in an afterlife. He's a neurologist. But he said that the joy he gets from seeing death is that his works will carry over to generations. That he hopes that his work will carry over to generations through the books that he writes, right? Through the patients he's helped, through the people he's touched in his life. And that's being a physician for the right reason. That was done deliberately. It was done with a purpose of continuing his message through. Not his legacy, right? Not his fame. But his intention was done to help others, right? And that is an intention that will carry on forever. If he just helps one person, that will carry on forever. And you can do that through many different ways. And he wasn't even an author. He was a neurologist first, right? Occupation is a means to an end. Doing something deliberately sees no end. It is just the way that you carry yourself throughout life. And I really believe that. That's why, at least for me, I lose focus so much in life nowadays. I lose focus in things that, for example, school. Some of the shit I learn, I am just like, what the fuck am I fucking doing? Right? There are so many things that they teach me in exercise science where I'm just like, and how is this going to benefit an athlete? How is this going to benefit a normal person? Right? I don't see the intent. There's no intention behind it besides just to regurgitate. There's no practicality in it. I think this carries over into most people's lives and how they live it. Back to the sense of there is no intention in everything they do in their day, right? The doom scrolling may have an intention, but you're not conscious of it, right? People say, I doom scroll, I say I'm going to scroll for 10 minutes and it ends up being an hour, and that's because you lose focus. That's because you lose the sense of self. That's because you lose your awareness, that self-awareness of what's going on. I fall in it too, and that's because the intention behind it is misaligned. The intention behind it is to get to an end, to feel relief from something, to end the struggle of something. And that's the biggest lie I think mankind has, is that one day, whatever we're feeling will end, right? That deep desire for whatever is relief. When in reality, that deep desire is just to live life to the fullest. But to live life to the fullest, there's going to be pain, there's going to be aches, there's going to be cringe, right? There's going to be so many different things which we put a negative connotation behind. But the reason why we do it is because we're not conscious about what it really makes us feel like. Brings up to that point of, I find it funny when people say, you're going to go to hell because you're a bad person. Not to me. I mean, maybe. I don't know. If you think I'm going to hell, I'm glad I affected you that much. But it goes back to the fact that there's as Marcus Aurelius talks about, someone doesn't do harm because they want to do harm. They do harm because they are naive of what doing good feels like, or they're uneducated, right? I think a lot of people here, probably some of you have heard about this, right? A good person does good, right? At least myself, when people say like, oh, you're a good person, I usually rebuttal with, no, I'm not a good person, I just do things that make me feel good, right? Because for me, it feels good to help others. It feels good not to be upset. I still get upset. I still get quick to anger. But since I'm conscious about what those things do, I can have an intention and intentionally place it there, right? And that's because I've been deliberate in looking at myself in the mirror. I don't do it all the time. Sometimes I'm not deliberate, and that's usually the times when I'm scrolling too much. That's usually the times when I'm just kind of walking through life. I'm not moving with a purpose, right? Right now, as I'm talking to this camera, I know I'm kind of quiet. I used to not be so quiet, but I'm kind of quiet because I got a roommate. But I feel more deliberate in what I'm saying. And I'm trying to slow down, and that's why I keep repeating some words, is because I'm trying to be intentional and self-aware of what I am saying. So maybe if I am boring, I don't really give a fuck. But back to my point, the person who is deliberate in how they treat others will treat them well. Maybe not always, but let's just say for this example, right? If they're deliberate about being good, they'll be aware of what they're doing, they'll be intentional with it, and since they're aware of how it makes others feel, they're also aware of how it makes them feel, right? Now to the person who is quick to anger, right? Maybe someone who has bad habits. That person isn't necessarily bad. They're just not, as I have here, not having the energy. They're not focusing the energy in the right ways, right? They're internalizing the energy. They're not being intentional with the energy. They're trying to get relief in a fast way, not being conscious about how that energy is spreading, right? Where their intention is going. They don't have that self-awareness. So what do? Someone drops something. Someone does something bad. I don't know. They get quick to anger. I mean, dude, a perfect example. I just had you guys want to hear about me? Okay, let's do it. I was having the worst fucking day. We don't need to get into details why. It was horrible. And I went over to go get my fucking nectar. Because I was like, damn it, let me go get some fucking nectar, eat some healthy food, feel good about myself. I'm walking over. And I see a door open of a car, and that person drops a brown bag with a fucking, I don't know, I forget what it was. I think it was beer. And you know when people say all they can see is red, all I can see is green. Because I love the earth. No, I'm joking. But I fucking walk over. The woman, I found out it was a woman, drove into Krispy Kreme to the drive-thru. I fucking pick up the can. I walk over to the car. I look inside and I just hold it. She rolls down her window and I was like, is this fucking yours? And she like looks at me like this. And then the woman on the loudspeaker is like, huh, what's going on? And she rolls up the window and I'm like, I think I yelled something from the effect of like, yeah, I'm clean, or like, yeah, fucking clean up after yourself, you dirty piece of shit, or like, you're disgusting, like, you're fucking gross, some shit like that. Or she said, I don't know, I forget, I was pissed. And I was just fuming. And in that moment, I kind of wanted to be mad. I really did. I wanted to be upset with something. I wanted to have anger and do something right to make me feel better. I didn't really want to change her. I wanted to make her feel bad about herself. You know what the funny thing about that is? That by me making her feel bad about herself, she probably is saying, well, if I'm a bad person, I may as well just litter. Or if this is how people treat me, I may as well just litter. Why should I care about the earth? And me being negative in that point, I'm not here to help you, I'm here to berate you. I'm here to build myself up. And that is the opposite of being deliberate and intentional. That's the complete opposite of being conscious. That is why disputes and fights and arguments, debates, never end up in a mutual agreement on things of this is right, this is wrong, or even just we're both right and wrong. There's never that. When you argue with someone, when you debate someone, the person becomes more engraved in those ideas. Why? Because we're arguing over nothing. Right? if I really was doing this, like what I usually do, just to pick up trash and throw it away, I would do it intentionally and consciously to just do it to help the earth. And obviously she's drinking and driving, so she's obviously going through some sort of problem and getting Krispy Kreme. Like, these are not, like, when I reflect on it, I'm like, wow, this person is obviously in a state where, why should they care about the earth if they don't even care about themselves? Right? Why would they have the intention of bettering the outside world when they don't even have the intention and aren't even maybe even aware that the inside world is hurting? And for me, maybe my outside world looks good, but in that moment, my inside world was hurting too. And those two clashed right there. And that's where the love for, like, the nitty-gritty kind of needs to come in, and staying true to oneself. Because you hear so many of the greats, I guess you could say, saying, I love the pain, I love the grind. And it's because it's just, they're conscious, and the pain isn't done just for pain, it's done intentionally. The feeling of it is with intention. It is intention to get to a place of better understanding, right? Maybe of oneself, maybe of a topic, but it ultimately leads to a better understanding of one's spirit. And I've had some weird experiences. Like, even today I applied to this job, and I've never been rejected from a job. I'm not even trying to, like, gloat. And this job, to myself, I literally thought it was a joke. And after I went in and I got the paper, I came back and I was filling it out, and I just started thinking, like, the person I talked to was very strange and weird. And I didn't like the vibe. And I started to spend that energy on what was wrong with this person. And then I went back in, and my energy was not, I wasn't deliberate about getting the job, I was deliberate about proving myself right that this person was weird. And guess what? It totally manifested. The dude, like, said, like, was just so awkward and was just so weird and was just so, like, unclear about what he was saying, and the energy I was getting from him was just off. And the reason for that is because my energy, my conscience, was aware of the fact that he was weird, but my intention wasn't to understand better, it was to prove myself right. To prove that my ideas were correct. And that is the opposite of what one should be doing. In life, one's deliberate energy, one's should do things deliberately to prove themselves wrong, because that's how you learn. Right? In science, the one way you know a theory is correct, or at least is scientifically plausible, is if you know exactly what would falsify it, right? A prime example would be the law of gravity, right? What would prove gravity wrong is that there's no weight to anything. It's weightless. And that would mean gravity's not real, right? If we were floating around. What's a better example? I can't really think of one. Oh, okay. The theory of the Big Bang. If there was no background radiation, and if the universe was never expanding, right? If the universe didn't continue to expand, those are key evidence pieces that would falsify the Big Bang. Two key things that dictate whether or not there's a plausibility for the Big Bang. So I know those two things, right? Can I falsify why I thought that guy was weird? No. It was just an energy. It was just a feeling. And I could be right, but I will never know. And usually people aren't weird because they're just weird. There's usually some sort of story behind it. So, back to everything. I think this leads us back to the biggest thing of all, which is honesty. We'll dive into that deeper next week, but I think being true to your word is one of the biggest things it talks about in the 4 agreements. Being impeccable with your word is huge. Saying what you say with pure honesty, right? Because let's be honest here, I'm pretty good at coaxing myself and covering up. exactly what I want to say. I would say I'm somewhat emotionally intelligent. Maybe not all the times. When I get flustered, I'm definitely not. But yeah, I'm pretty emotionally intelligent in many realms of life. And so instead of being like, hey man, like I don't get this vibe, or like I don't really get what's going on, instead I, put on the smiley face, nice to meet you, oh, I totally understand, it's all good. Like I started putting on this facade instead of being like, so what's going on, right? Same with that woman, right? I kind of knew like, if I was nice to her, there was a possibility of me getting hurt. So instead I switched to the opposite side of the spectrum, right? You fucking disgusting, right? You're gross. Boom. And so I do this so then I get the outcome that I want. To be honest, I didn't really want the job. I mean, money would be nice. It was a front desk job at a Planet Fitness. Like, I was already like telling myself like this is lower than I've worked before, blah blah blah, all this bullshit. But it is a learning experience, and that's all I can ask for. So, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope what I said makes sense. If it doesn't, whatever. This will be on the internet for hopefully eternity. And maybe eons from now, I don't know. The human race is still existing. Someone will see this and be like, damn, like that fucking Asian dude was saying some things that made sense, or maybe we'll be speaking a completely different language and dialect, which I heard is very much a possibility, because that's like, it's like in fucking 1984, like it all becomes, they take out words, so then things are, I don't know, there's not as much empty space, and like words aren't as vague. Even though they get more vague the more you take out. But, back to it. I feel deliberate when I'm talking to you guys, because I feel that I could be helping someone. I know that some of you are watching. And to those that do watch, I really appreciate it, because I wish for myself that I had someone on YouTube who just had these talks. And there are, but I feel a lot of this stuff is intentionally done to get views and to sell some sort of rhetoric. Like the red pill shit and the black pill and fucking SJWs and all this bullshit, like liberals versus Democrats, Nazis versus fucking communists, like all this shit, man. And I think as young men especially, we need to be rooted back down to the simple things in life, right? And masculinity is something that I'm starting to realize is kind of the thing that's building on top of this. And it's deeper than just the bullshit that we hear: work out, get money, have a successful family. It's a lot deeper than that. It's a lot more than that. And I think it ties back into spirituality. So, next week we'll talk about honesty. Because I think honesty is something that so many of us, including myself, think we have a grasp on. But it's so much bigger than just the surface level bit of honesty, right? Because I convince myself all the time that I'm being honest, but from another's perspective, I could be the biggest liar. I could be mischievous. I could be diabolical. I could be, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Not decisive, something else. Deceptive, right? Deceptive. I could be hiding, because I think we all hide a lot about ourselves and internally, which makes sense. It's how society functions. If I fucking went outside and was like, I want to go kill this person's really pissing me off, I would probably be arrested, because they don't know. There's thoughts. We don't know what someone's actually thinking. But to the beauty of everything, to being deliberate. I hope you guys are deliberate in watching this video. I hope you guys are deliberate when you hang out with people that you care about. I hope you're deliberate in what you spend your time on. And Don't take this as you're going to be perfect. You're always going to know, right? Done with self-awareness and action which reinforces that self-awareness, right? Done consciously and intentionally is what deliberate means. It's not going to happen all the time, man. Sometimes we lose that self-awareness, but that's when we got to find ourselves, right? That's when we got to start falsifying who we think we are. And through that, that's when we take those actions. Guys, all of you guys are amazing. I hope you know that. Please comment, say something. I really appreciate it. It helps me to talk about this. So, I'll see you guys next week.